frequently he would say, "There's no other way. There's just no other way." This seemed to come as sort of an apology, particularly when at the conclusion of describing some particularly offensive changes, for example, the promotion of drug addiction, which we'll get into shortly. He was very active with population control groups, the population control movement, and population control was really the entry point into specifics following the introduction.
As my stepson, Curran Tierney, he died in 2022 of an overdose which was, in many ways, after a very long road of recovery, was made possible because of hospital protocols. We had a very difficult time getting access to him, and the way the medical system was arranged with HIPAA laws, with COVID wards, and all this other crap, made it possible for him to actually re-enter a state of full-blown addiction during 6 or 7 of his last 8 weeks while he was in a hospital, while he was in a hospital. So for those of you who are continue to be promoters of this virus mythology, keep in mind that your lies and the lies that you support have led to the deaths of many people in many ways, which more than you can imagine. But this month we're trying to raise awareness. The numbers, I've tried to make them as simple as possible. In the United States of America, 2019 to 2023, we've had 500,000 total drug overdose deaths. That's 100,000 a year. The baseline was 20,000 a year back in 1999 in the year 2000. These excess deaths have been a key pillar of the excess mortality, which is supposedly caused by a gain-of-function virus from a bat or a puddle or a laboratory, which has required the entire world government to be turned upside down and loss of many of our freedoms, of course, and while killing people in various other ways during that time. It would be good, it would be helpful if my audience could help other people realize the severity of the problem, and that the only reason life expectancy has gone down in the last few years during the era of COVID is because so many young people have been murdered with drugs. Addictions which started needlessly, to sports injuries, wisdom teeth being pulled, whatever, or toxic or laced drugs which someone came into contact with at a concert or at a party or whatever, or it could even be a 2-year-old dying in a daycare facility because of fentanyl being repressed in the back room. Whatever the case, these large quantities of death, many of them can be reduced or minimalized. First off, by clearing up some of these hospital protocols and virus mythology. Secondly, by giving more guidance as to the unique nature of opioid dependency and addiction, substance abuse. Third, of course, would be being able to warn our youth about the dangers of repressed pills, laced medicines, and so on and so forth. Several of these things, and doesn't even require, although I do support border security, it doesn't even require serious changes to the world or to our laws. But there is a war on raising this awareness right now, precisely because these types of deaths are required to continue to justify the virus gain-of-function mythology. In fact, while life expectancy has gone down only, and I'm going to say only because of the drug epidemic in the United States of America, those deaths which were used, backfilling missing flu deaths, to help create a perception of a new and spreading pathogen in a deadly pandemic. Some people in the, I would say in the hero truth freedom space, in particular Pierre Corey, have actually gone on to say that drug overdoses had nothing to do with decreasing life expectancy. It's only from the gain-of-function virus or the transfections, which can be made safer next time. Hence, it's too bad that Children's Health Defense doesn't defend children as well as they defend Pierre Corey, but oh well. Anyways, on this August 31st, there will be multiple vigils held around the United States. I will be at the one in Franklin, Massachusetts, working at a booth of Team Sharing, trying to collect enough signatures for a overdose awareness special license plate in the state of Massachusetts. Pierre Corey will come up again a bit later in this conversation.
Drug use would be increased, alcohol abuse would be increased, and law enforcement efforts against drugs would be increased. On first hearing that, it sounded like a contradiction. Why increase drug abuse and simultaneously increase law enforcement against drug abuse? But the idea is that, in part, the increased availability of drugs would provide a sort of law of the jungle, whereby the weak and the unfit would be selected out. There was a statement made at that time, before the earth was overpopulated, there was a law of the jungle where only the fittest survived. You had to be able to protect yourself against the elements and wild animals and disease, and if you were fit, you survived. But now that we've become so civilized, we're over-civilized, and the unfit are able to survive only at the expense of those who are more fit. And the abuse of drugs then would restore, in a certain sense, the law of the jungle and selection of the fittest for survival. News about drug abuse and law enforcement efforts would tend to keep drugs in the public consciousness, and would also tend to reduce this unwarranted American complacency that the world is a safe place and a nice place. The same thing would happen with alcohol. Alcohol abuse would be both promoted and demoted at the same time. The vulnerable and the weak would respond to the promotions and therefore use and abuse more alcohol. Drunk driving would become more of a problem, and stricter rules about driving under the influence would be established so that more and more people would lose their privilege to drive. This also had connection with something we'll get to later about overall restrictions on travel. Not everybody should be free to travel the way they do now in the United States. People don't have a need to travel that way. It's a privilege, was kind of the high-handed way it was put. Again, much more in the way of psychological services would be made available to help those who got hooked on drugs and alcohol. The idea being that in order to promote this drug and alcohol abuse, to screen out some of the unfit, people who otherwise are pretty good also would be subject to getting hooked. And if they were really worth their salt, they would have enough sense to seek psychological counseling and to benefit from it. So this was presented as sort of a redeeming value on the part of the planners. It was as if he were saying, you think we're bad in promoting these evil things, but look how nice we are. We're also providing a way out. More jails would be needed. Hospitals could serve as jails.
To a gain-of-function virus from a lab or a cave. And these are the people whose lives you're actually taking advantage of with that statement. These deaths, and when factoring in their ages of when they died, this is what gave that data of all those extra deaths and all that drop in life expectancy that you said, after with a little bit of a giggle, on that one's particularly special to us, on the Jimmy Dore show, that was the only reason life expectancy was going down. You actually, I mean, it's just a crime. I don't know what else to say. This is for you, Pierre Corey. You in particular. You in particular, and your life expectancy drop is due to the vaccine and a gain-of-function virus. This is for you, Pierre Corey. I want you to see this. And then I want you to go back to your comfortable home and your bills that are being paid and your life insurance, and washing away the sand between your toes from the cruises that you've taken. Talking about gain-of-function viruses and ignoring and saying we need to ignore the drug epidemic. This is for you, Pierre Corey.